Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to our Inside Furman basketball get-together with Furman head coach Bob Ritchie. Paladins getting set to open SoCon play this week with a pair of road games tomorrow night at Greensboro and Saturday at Chattanooga. We'll give you broadcast information about both of those a little bit later on. But as normally, we will open it up for questions after head coach Bob Ritchie gives us an opening statement. Bob?
All right. Appreciate everybody being here, and we're excited to start off league play, and obviously got to go on the road to open up versus two really, really good teams. And, the series with both of these teams has been, you look back on the past couple of years, and they've always been good games for the most part, and would expect the same thing going there to Greensboro. Mike Jones does a great job. Those guys always play really, really hard, and they defend you, and they've got a lot of old players. And so we've seen these Langley brothers for years, feels like 5 or 6 years. They've been there a long time, and they're really, really good. And, they've got interior presence, and, with Brown Jones, I'm assuming coming back at some point, and probably, you get to conference play, and, you typically see guys start to get healthy and, get out there. So They've got really good guard play. They've also got good interior presence, and they're very well coached. So excited about the challenge, and excited to get to league play. And this is when this thing gets fun. This is a great league, and it's historically been a lot of fun to follow conference play. And you gotta as we saw last year, it's never really about how you necessarily start, but it's about how you continue to improve and how you finish and how you keep getting better. And that's where our focus is at this point.
Coach, from someone who doesn't know anything about basketball other than watching, I can tell how well UNCG is coached. What is the number one thing they do that presents a problem from that perspective?
Well, I think there's a lot of good things they do. I think Mike's teams always play with tremendous energy, and they always play. They always defend you. And they really focus on that end of the floor, and they try to be physical. They try to really affect you around the rim. They try to keep the ball in front. They've got aggressive flow to the ball, and that's typically they've always been one of the best defensive teams in the league, and but they can also score it. They're complete, and he gives. I think Mike does a really good job of giving his players confidence and letting those guys go play to their strengths. And so, the Langley brothers play with tremendous confidence with the ball in their hand. And really, they shoot as many dribble threes as probably a team that will play, but they do it with extreme confidence. And, so you've got really good perimeter shooting on the arc. Kobe's playing well. He's really, really improved. And both he and Kayshawn have always been really, really good players. But man, they're both hitting shots from the edges right now, and then you got Atwood that's shooting as good as anybody in the conference, and so and then you couple that with an all-conference post player down there, and then they've got kind of a repertoire of bigs, that can present different problems, and so they got good players, they got good schemes, they play with tremendous energy, and usually when you have those three things, you're gonna have a chance to be really good.
Coach, the last 4 years, split them. It's been interesting that UNCG has won here, and you've been able to win in Greensboro. How have you been able to do that on the road?
Yeah, I think that's interesting. You don't see that too often. They've seemed to have our number at home, and we've been able to get some wins up there. And I think it's one of those games. You go back and look at it. Here last year and up there, the team that played with the most energy and defended the best won the game. And, I think that 2 years ago, man, up there was just an absolute – 2 years ago, both games just came down to basically the last couple minutes. And, they beat us at the well. Garrett made that shot to go up, and then we had a defensive rebound, and we lost it, and then we fouled, and they ended up making the play down the stretch. And then up there it was kind of the same thing, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. I think Alex Hunter made that and 1-3 to give us a little bit of separation there, but it could have gone either way. And I think when you play teams at the top of the league, and you got guys that are experienced, and you got guys that really compete, and you got good schemes and good coaching, that's usually what happens in league games. They're going to come down to the very end, And you got to have the mental toughness to be able to generate stops and really to be able to play to identity the best you can. And that's what we're going to try to go do tomorrow night.
Bob, obviously there are exceptions, and there have been, but a recurring theme of this year has been having a rough night with three-pointers at the same time that the team is hitting 60% or more inside the arc. Now, I know it's part of your game. Do you, and you don't want to give up on that, but do you stick with that, or do you start to adjust your offense based on the sample to date?
Yeah, I'm trying to track with you. So are you suggesting shoot less threes and shoot more twos?
I'm saying, how do you analyze that and where you go from here?
Well, I don't think it's consistent. You know, I mean, do we make shots versus Belmont? Do we make shots at Tulane? I mean, I get it. Yeah, we've had probably 3 nights where it's been really poor from out there. We got good shooters, and you know, we had 2 really good shooters in suits, right? So like, nah, we're not gonna. I mean, for 7 years now, we've averaged basically 80 points a game, and you know, our issue on Saturday was not offense. You know, we gave up 79 points, and so we missed 14 free throws. You know what I mean? Like that's a way bigger issue when you score 74 in a game, and then you go back and look at it, and you're like, man, we turned this thing over 16 times, and we missed 14 free throws, and we went 2 for 20 from 3. Well, if we take care of the ball a little bit more, and we shoot an average number from the free throw line, and we throw in, let's say we go 4 for 20 from 3, okay, which is still a pretty poor night. Now all of a sudden you're scoring 90 plus. You know, nobody's worried about it. You know, but obviously the outcome was poor, and our effort was embarrassing at best on the defensive end of the floor, and we lacked leadership on the court to play the values. And look, no excuses. These are just truths. We had 40 points on the bench. You know, and I'm going to protect my guys. You know, I think all coaches would love to play a team and pull 40 points right off the court. And even with that, we should have played harder and we should have played tougher. But on that particular day, we woke up and we thought winning was going to be easy. And when you decide that winning is going to be easy, right, and you drop your standard at all, and you play a team that is basically their Super Bowl and their biggest game of the year, okay, and they traveled more fans here than they'll have at some of their home games this year, then you put yourself in a position where you're not ready to play and you think winning's going to be easy, and then that's what happens. And I don't think it, my personal opinion, I don't think it had anything to do with if we had made more threes, right? I think it had to do more if we would have had the correct mentality to just play the game the way the game's supposed to be played and lead how we're supposed to lead on the floor to our values. I think we had been just fine. And, you know, I will say this. I've been really proud of our team's response in the last 48 hours. And, you know, I've been really, really, really pleased with J.P. Peguese's leadership. And, you know, he started communicating with me Saturday night late that he wanted to talk to me one-on-one. And we met for an hour on Sunday morning. And it's as good of a meeting in terms of the words that he could have said in that moment of what needs to be done and what he observed and the things that he's got to do better as a leader and the things that he wants to do better as a leader. And when you get players communicating that on their own and they're making those decisions on their own convictions, that's when this stuff really starts to show progress. And I think it was much more of a absence of leadership on that court, because when you lack leadership on the court, there's no way you can carry any type of accountability out there, which now without accountability, you have no standard of performance, right? It's not great teammate, fly around on D, move and value the ball, because there's no accountability to it. And then all of a sudden entitlement starts to creep in that, hey, we're supposed to win. And then all of a sudden you don't have that mindset that we have to go earn victory. Well, now all of a sudden you're putting yourself, anybody can beat you, right? Like they're not a team on your schedule that can't beat you if you go into it with that mentality. And so, you know, I hear your question, and I'm not saying your observation is incorrect, but I think we have really, really good shooters on this team. I think once we have the right mentality, you know, we've had games this year where we've shot the ball really well. And I think it's all about, can we find consistency in our leadership? Can we find consistency in playing to our values? Can we find consistency of how we prepare mentally for games? I think that's going to be the trick for this team.
Coach, if you look at UNCG, when they were under Wes Miller as opposed to now, they've always been really, really good on the defensive end of the floor, but they've really evolved, I think, offensively to become a team that can put more pressure on you on that end of the floor now. I guess Scott kind of already alluded to it, but, like, are they playing at a faster pace, or how are they being more efficient seemingly under Mike Jones right now than I can remember them being under Coach Miller?
Man, I'll tell you this. That's a hard question to answer. I got a ton of respect for Wes and Mike. I think Wes ran some good stuff. I mean, I think Isaiah Miller puts in some bonds and Dickey at the rim, and they had some good offensive players. To be honest with you, it's funny when you watch them on film. There are definitely some differences. I feel like every time we play Greensboro, it's like middle of the floor ball screens. Whether it was Dickey running up there and setting them, and then you got some type of pin action. I mean, for years you're chasing Alonzo. Now we're chasing Atwell. And we're chasing some of the Langleys, and it's there's definitely some differences. I think the biggest thing, Wes Miller's a phenomenal coach. Mike Jones is a phenomenal coach. You've got a program that's won consistently for a while now, that's been to 2 NCAA tournaments in the last 10 years, and they have an identity, right? Like, this is who we are. This is like we know how we have to play, and we know how we have to win. And I think offensively, like I said, you're talking about some guys that have some firepower from the edges that can really shoot. I mean, these guys are shooting a lot of threes. Like you look at their numbers, and they're getting the ball up from the outside. And so that might be one observation, is maybe they've trended a little bit more to a higher volume of 3-pointers. But you know what, like, that's also a common trend in college basketball right now in general. And I think they've got the personnel to be able to do it. And if you've got good shooters, hey, let them fly. Like, y'all been around me long enough. Y'all know my philosophy on that. That was probably one of my biggest takeaways from the other night, is not so much that we only made 2, that we only got up 20. Like, you got to play this game with confidence. You got to play this game with belief, and you got to go out there and you got to step into them and hit them. And I will say, with this team with Greensboro, like, they've got some guys that are really confident, like I said, off the catch, but also the unique part that we got to do a really good job on. We did a poor job of that last year here. We let Langley get off the dribble, and I think he hit 3 threes off the dribble in that game here. And we got to do a good job when they have the ball in their hands.
Coach, I know that on Saturday, you was down 2 of your best players, but you was able to get your bench to get some more. Who on the bench gave you the best effort this past weekend that you would look at and say, that's what we're going to need down the stretch in conference play?
I thought more so second half. I thought Tyrese Huey really helped us. And I thought, he started really having some aggressive rolls to the rim, did a good job getting some rebounds, did some good job hitting his free throws, and, really putting some pressure on the rim with his rolling. And, Tyrese is somebody I've always had a tremendous amount of belief in. I think that Tyrese is one of those players, he can really do everything on the court that you need him to do. He just has to believe it, and then he's got to play with an intensity and a fire about him that's consistent. And yesterday we obviously had a pretty spirited practice, and it was fun to watch. Garrett had the best practice he's had all year, which was great, because I didn't think he was ready to play on Saturday. It was great to see his response. But then Tyrese had a really, really good practice as well. And when those two guys are playing with the physicality the game demands, and they're getting on the backboards and they're making the tough physical plays, we're a different team. And it's one of those situations where we need Tyrese to step up. He gives us some different options in terms of, you're talking about a 40% 3-point shooter, but also he's a guy that can roll and finish over the rim. And so he's got a unique ability to put pressure on the rim, but also be able to step out from the edges. And that gives you some optionality in your offense that I think we need. He can chase down balls. I mean, yesterday we couldn't keep him off the offensive glass. Well, that's a choice. You know, I mean, he only got one on Saturday, you know, and that one tied the game up and should have given us the momentum we needed to finish the game. But, you know, it's one of those situations where we need more, just not ability and not points and not talent per se. We need more edge and energy from him because he's got the ability to give that to us. And, you know, I've always thought with this team, you're always trying to figure out upside, right? Like, what's our best team in March? And I've always thought he's a part of that. You know, he's a very key piece in that. And, you know, I think we've got to continue to help him get there. But I think at the same time, he's somebody that it's if he does get there, then that changes what we can do and that changes some of our ability as a team.
Bob, you addressed leadership just a moment ago. You addressed it on the post-game radio after Anderson. And obviously from last year you lost two really good leaders, not just two outstanding fifth-year players, but two really good leaders. Leadership is not something that just happens. It's part of the developmental process. How do you as a coach, how do you as a staff develop leaders, especially when guys are being asked maybe to be in that role for the first time?
Yeah. Great question, Dan. You know, it's listen, when I say things about our leadership, just understand, first of all, I'm pointing at myself first. And I've done a job that hasn't quite been good enough to get that player-led leadership, and ultimately that's my job. And one of the I hate to use the word luxuries, but you know, when you're going through hard times, you don't always realize the dividend and the payoff it's going to give you until you get on the other side of it. But you know, I've told y'all this before. As an assistant for 11 seasons, I was a part of 9 losing seasons, so I saw a lot of losing, and I saw a lot of trending up of 2 programs that we had to build, and it was a trend that went up. But it both at Charleston Southern and when I got to Furman, I mean, it was single digit wins that we had to just find the building blocks and figure out the identity and figure out how to win at both places. And what I realized early in my career is the easiest thing for a coach to do is blame the player leadership for the lack of success. And I always think when leadership on the court is questioned, that's an indictment on me first. And my job and what I've done when I got the job here, creating the Further the Man program, creating the Leadership Council, has been to have a mechanism in place to develop leaders and to develop people, because I think that as we do that, then that allows you to have sustainable success, right? Can you continue the leadership that's gotten us to where we have gotten to? I think one thing we also have to know with leadership is it's incredibly hard, right? It's incredibly difficult, okay? Everybody wants to lead when you're winning. Everybody wants to lead when things are going well. Those are really easy things to do. Leaders are made in adversity, right? Leaders are developed in hard times. That's when they stand out the most. That's when people start to get behind their conviction and their courage and their confidence because they're willing to endure the storm. And I think what I have to do is continue to help these guys. I love this group. I mean, I love the people that we have. I love the players that we have. We chose a very challenging schedule. We didn't know that we were going to go through the type of injuries that we've having to go through. We didn't know that we were going to be without Marcus for a while. And, you know, heck, I mean, yesterday Carter couldn't practice. Today we had another one that couldn't practice, you know, like fortunately JP did practice, you know, and like you're just kind of like, it seems like every day I'm dealing with our trainer, you know. Well, that can be a negative, or you can just lead through that and you can teach your team how to respond to that. And you've got to get your players to be willing to do it. But then once you're able to do that, then now all of a sudden you can navigate the hard times together. And, you know, typically around here when we have a tough day or a game that doesn't go our way, I like to just go over to Allie, you know, just kind of have a tight gym, closed, tight practice, and, you know, kind of a road mentality. You can smell the polyurethane from a mile away, and you just get in there and you just work it out. And I was going over there yesterday, and I text Mike and Slaw, and I said, we're heading over to Alley. And, you know, they remember those days. We had a couple of those days last year, right? And it's one of those days where the first thing you have to do, Dan, is you have to teach your players how to respond, right? And you can't just go over there and just expect them to figure it out, okay? I met with Garrett Saturday night after the game, okay? I met with JP Sunday morning for an hour. I met with 2 other players that afternoon. I was up here all day on Sunday, basically a lot of the day, meeting with our players one-on-one, right, to continue to pursue their hearts, continue to try to help them. Hey, this is how we have to respond. Show them, teach them. They got to be willing. And then once they're willing and you can work in that together, it's not going to be perfect. I can't expect it to be perfect, but it's going to be a step in the right direction. And I think that's what gives me the most excitement is we have guys that can lead, but man, like we did lose 2 good ones. And not only that, but they've also had to endure a little bit more than even those guys last year had to. We had relatively a very healthy season last year. I think our strength of schedule was in the 88 range for a while this year. Last year it was in the mid 200s. So like this group has had to endure more, which means I need to help them more. And I've allowed a few things that probably have maybe in some ways, I think it's the natural lean of human nature, that a little entitlement's probably crept in, like we're Furman and, we're going to be okay in this particular game, or we're going to be good here. And you've got to earn victory every single day. And that's a part of leadership. And, I enjoy that part of it. I think that it's hard, it's not like I'm human too, and I'm coaching 18 to 22-year-olds. It's not like you just say, oh yeah, let's take all the adversity we can get and, we love all this, but that's the mentality that you have to build, right? Like as we talked about on the other side of it, right? In March last year, what sounds good when you're over there cutting down nets to say, oh, count it all joy in hindsight. Okay. But like, can you actually do that in the moment? Can you actually let this develop you? And when we talk about count it all joy, that it creates long suffering, right? That you have to have the ability to endure. Well, that's leadership. Like, are we going to tap out, right? Like, hey, we're well attended today. Everybody wants to see, like, is he doom and gloom? Is he excited? Like, how is he? Are those guys okay, right? Like, everybody's texting me, man, you all right? Yeah, I'm all right. Like, this is for such a time as this. Like, we got to rise up and lead. And the story's not written, right? Like I love all y'all in here to death. Like, whatever y'all type today and whatever y'all write and whatever y'all want to type about this team and whatever y'all don't know either. And I say that respectfully. The people that cover the league, they don't know either, right? Like it's all predictions. It's all like, man, how's Furman doing? Okay, this thing's gonna get settled in Nashville. That's what happened last year. That's what happened the year before. That's what happened the year before. That's what happened the year before. We've got to continue to stay encouraged. We've got to stay focused on a vision that's greater than our discouragements and greater than our disappointments. And when you go through life, if you lack vision and you lack values, when the disappointment hits you, it derails you to where it decreases your focus because you don't have a fixation on a vision and you don't have a fixation on values. And if you can get your eyes fixated on the vision of values of where we're heading and you can just endure, then you're going to face disappointments and you're going to face setbacks, but you're going to be able to see that, hey, we didn't fall suit to that. We were able to overcome that and utilize that to get to our best version. And that's what we're going to do here. And, hey, Sunday, like, long day, you know what I mean? Like, hey, I'm first in, last out, right? And we're working. And yesterday, like, we're in here. I got home, I didn't get to see much of the Alabama-Michigan game. I heard it was a good one. Like I did get to see a little bit of the ending of the Washington-Texas game. That quarterback was, that was a show. But, we have to work through this. And I think that's where teams are built. And I think the story on this team, we're in early chapters, right? We're in early chapters. And people want to close a book on us. That's fine, okay? Like, that's okay. I don't think anybody in the basketball world is doing that. They know that we had some people that are really, really good that aren't playing. And we're going to be there as long as we continue to develop that leadership. And hopefully, I know that was lengthy, but hopefully you're hearing what I'm saying. Like, ultimately, that's my responsibility. And I know that we have capable leaders, just like I told y'all 2 weeks ago. And I'm really, really proud of the way JP has handled this. And it's only going to elevate not just his performance, but, man, his trajectory changes, not just in basketball, but in life. if he continues to embrace and develop the gifts that God's given him to be the natural leader that he can be.
Coach, I was on the road and unable to be here Saturday, but I'll let Dan paint the picture for me. And as I was listening to the rebounding by Anderson, one thing I couldn't help but think about was, in addition to his leadership and his scoring, JP's been such a difference maker in the rebounding this year too. Kind of, as he's had to do more different things in some instances when people have tried to take him away, he's made a difference in different ways. I think you missed his rebounding as well on Saturday, and just kind of an update on him injury-wise and others as well.
Yeah, I mean, the rebounding, 19 offensive rebounds. I told the team, 4 things went wrong in that game, okay? Really 5. The intangible stuff that we've already discussed. We weren't ready to play, okay? And that was very clear, okay? We thought winning was going to be easy. We didn't show up, and ultimately that's my fault. So the intangible piece, that's one thing that wasn't correct. They could sense that, okay? We're up 9-2 to start the game. We have 4 scouting report errors in that span of a 9-2 game, right? We're up 7 to start. We have 4 scouting report screw-ups. We work through all that. We're up 31-24. They're playing harder than we are, and it's been like that, right? They make a couple shots. We let a guy that we're supposed to be chasing get 2 threes off. They have a play right before halftime, about 3 minutes to go. We're up 2. Their best shooter misses a 3. Their point guard chases it down. We miss the box out on the perimeter. The ball's going out of bounds. He jumps in the air. He jumps in the bleachers. He saves it. He throws it back to their best shooter, who has the confidence to take another one, right, playing with house money, and they make it, and they take the lead, and they call a timeout. And at that point, that's when they had their hope. And so what you see there is the beginning of the game, they weren't getting those offensive rebounds, okay? The offensive rebounds accumulated as their hope grew, and as our lack of leadership and our communication and our void of it, as we got discouraged, right, then we quit boxing and we quit crashing. Now, as the game got desperate late, all of a sudden you see we got guys flying in there and getting some offensive rebounds. But then they had hope, and then they got more as the game went on, and obviously got some critical ones late. But look, hopefully we know that, and to be honest with you, Scott, the crazy part of it is, out of our 7 teams, this has probably been analytically so far our best rebounding team to date. Which goes to show again, and look, business major, they made you take some statistics, just to show you knew a little bit about math. Bell curve, it's real, and I think in our rebounding, it's an outlier game. I do. I'm not going to sit there and all of a sudden tell our guys that, hey, we're not. I mean, you look at the numbers, we're a really good rebounding team. But on that particular day, we weren't mentally ready to go fight in the way that we needed to. And I agree. I mean, listen, we know if JP would have been on that court, we got a different game on our hands. And Jimmy knows that too. They're not picking up JP McGee's full court. Come on. I mean, let's be serious, okay? The leadership that he gives us, the intangibles that he gives us, the leadership that he gives us, just the edge that he gives us, that's what we were missing the most. And we're going to learn from it. We're going to grow from it. In terms of the injury front, JP's practiced the last couple of days, which has been great. And he's set to play tomorrow night, which we're excited about. I think Marcus had a very encouraging appointment on Saturday. Again, all those appointments are trending in the right direction. Don't really have a timeline on him in terms of, hey, this is the exact date, this is the exact game. We could see maybe still a mid-January timeline, and exactly when that looks like, we'll just have to find out from there. We had 3 with the flu. I think we have a 4th with the flu that's not going to be able to travel. It's been crazy, and it's been wild, but hopefully we're going to get on the other side of this thing. We had, Carter couldn't practice yesterday, but he's back today, and then we had another one that couldn't practice today. Hopefully he gets to play tomorrow. It's been a lot of things that have just been besides Marcus, nothing to this point, knock on wood, has been long, but it's just daily disruptions to where, I found out yesterday, 30 minutes before practice that, hey, we don't have this one. And then we find out this morning, an hour before practice, hey, we don't have this one. And again, we just have to navigate it, and we can't flinch. We can't hesitate. We got to keep fighting, and we got to keep swinging. And as we start to get healthy and we get these guys back, I'm really excited about where this team can be as this leadership continues to grow and we continue to play to our values.
Coach, tough non-conference schedule, tough loss at Princeton, at Tulane, and Anderson. You probably touched on this a moment ago, but how has your team been able to keep, and you as a coaching staff, an even keel and not let one loss turn into another?
Yeah, I think that's the key to this, Tom. Like we've got to move ahead. Everything's it's got to be about what's next. And it's one of those situations where there's nothing that we're going to be able to change about any of those outcomes, right? Like we all know in this room that you could say, hey, well, we could be or should be 9-4. Hey, none of that matters. Like we don't like where we are, right? I think Bobby Knight's line was like, "You are what your record is," and that's what we are. Like we don't need to talk about how it happened or, man, this one could have gone different. Like this is what it is, and the more we just acknowledge that, accept it, embrace it, and not fight it and not dismiss it, but tackle the things that we are clear that we need to improve on, then at that point you can utilize what you've been through to use it as a point to help you get better. And I think the more you dismiss it as like, hey, bad luck, or, man, I can't believe Princeton made that shot at the buzzer, or man, Tulane, what a call, like da-da-da. Like now all of a sudden you're like, that can also brew some entitlement, right? Like, oh, we should have won that. No, we shouldn't have. Like we didn't. Like 2 years ago the shot went in. Like I'm getting all these texts, you deserve to win. No, we didn't. We deserve to win for 44 minutes and 56 seconds. That's the reality of it. So the quicker we accept that, the faster we can move on and start to utilize this in a manner that helps us better. And that's just where my focus is at, and I'll tell you this, Tom, like we went and beat Villanova my second year, and it was a lot of fun. And that's a program that I've studied, and Jay Wright is a top 5 in my book. He just is. I watched him forever, and a lot of the way that we run program and values that we play with, is for me studying those guys. They had just won a national championship the year before. That was their pinnacle moment, right? They won 2 of them in a short stretch. And it's a little bit like, hey, last year we had a pinnacle moment, right? For second win in tournament history, right? Well, we go to Villanova and we beat them. And it was right after they won the national championship. And it's like, well, who's Furman? I still got the article in my office. Little old Furman, right, goes up and beats Villanova. Well, if I remember correctly, I don't think they canceled the season. I don't think they just said, oh, well, we're not. They won the Big East that year, right? Like it wasn't even like they had an average year. They won the Big East. They went to the tournament. They won the Big East tournament. They won. I think they made it to the second round of the NCAA tournament that year, and they didn't just cave in and say, oh man, bad luck. Michigan beat us by 30, and then little old Furman comes in here and beat us. They figured out like, hey, what is this exposing? And what do we have to get better at? And let's just stay the course and let's go do that. And I think, last year, right, Sanford lost to a 9-1. They lost South Carolina State, right? Well, I think they won 15 games in the league and got a share of the regular season and had a really, really good year. And I think they start out 8-0 in the league. They didn't just pack it in. And I think that sometimes we get lost in the moment like, oh, what's going on, or man, how – look, Is December going to be looked at as, hey, disappointing December? Yeah, you can look at it that way. You can roll with that narrative and you can let that affect your energy and your focus. Or hey, at the end of the day, like, don't matter December. Like we got to move forward. Like we got to take it and we got to utilize it in the best way we can. And we got to keep moving forward to get this team the best. And look, that's the trick of all this. And as I alluded to a little while ago, it's going to settle itself in Asheville, and we're going to play these next 18 games to figure out what the seeding is going to be in Asheville, and then we're going to go up there, and we're going to figure out where the chips lie. And our league's had a good start, but nobody in our league's done enough to get in that large bid to this point, unless somebody goes undefeated, and I don't think that's going to happen. And so it's going to be another year of a one-bid league, and we've got to be the most hungry team to go out there and continue to get healthy, continue to get playing to our values, continue to get our leadership where it needs to be so that we can be our best when our best is required.
there's a largely discredited view that people laugh if you say it now, but it's an idealistic view that sports is a microcosm of life, and I actually believe it's true because you can see how culture and everything else changes through sports. And I feel like I have an exalted view of the young because the people that I see and deal with are the very best. And another thing that I have seen is that when you're talking about, it would have been unthinkable at one time for a player to opt out of a bowl game. From my own meager background, I would never. I don't see how a person who's a member of a team with that togetherness can do that. So it seems to me that championship teams aren't any different than they always were, and I think that's something that you try to do. But I mean, having kids with character can, once you're competitive physically and all that, having smart kids with character winds up being a heck of an advantage. And that's probably why the team you're coaching is going to overcome this adversity. But it seems like it's a process that you go through every year, and maybe all of us do.
Yeah, I think every championship team, regardless, and look, we got no idea what this team's going to do and how we're going to finish, and we're gonna find all that out in the next 10 weeks or so. But Coach Sweeney's got a line that I've always loved. That they don't put rings on clean hands, and I believe that. Like, you got to get calloused and you got to get dirty, because the adversity is going to figure out like how much are you willing to fight for this. Like are you going to continue, like we talked about, like is your vision and your values going to be greater than your disappointments? And, or are you going to lack vision and values, and are you going to go play to self, and then all of a sudden you get disappointed and it's like, oh man, I'm not getting out of this what I want to get out of this. And I think that's where, for us as leaders, that's where we have to make sure we continue to focus that, hey, listen, the vision of our program is to not win a single game, right? The vision of our program is to grow people and in turn grow the program, and to sustain a level of winning and development that allows us to continue to compete for championships year after year. And as we go through that whole process, there's going to be setbacks, right? But as long as we understand the setbacks don't define us, that they could potentially develop us, then that's where the character piece comes in, right? You have to be able to convince a room that, hey, this is worth fighting for. And I think we have that, and I know we have that. I was really curious to see how we were going to practice yesterday, and it was by far our best practice of the year. And, it was not even close. It was not even close in terms of our responses, right? Our player-led voice, our attention to detail, how competitive we were on the defensive end, how we were rebounding, how the ball was moving. Like, those are the things over time. We just have to go stack days. And, if Mike Jones were sitting here right now and we had to do a press conference, neither of us know what's going to happen tomorrow night. We know we're going to have two really good teams with established identities and programs competing and fighting in one another, and we're both going to try like heck to win the game. He's one of my favorite coaches in the business. But like, you just have to go up there, and you've got to go up there, and you got to play as hard as you can, and you got to continue to get better, and you got to continue, right? When you see adversity, the best of the best, the ones that endure in March, are the ones that are able to see adversity and not be afraid of it. And last year, man, we all forget this, right? You can smile about it all now because we know how the story ended, okay? But the night in Charleston in late February was not a fun night for me or our team or our program, right? And but we weren't afraid of the adversity, and we responded to it, and we allowed ourselves to use it to then propel us to go win the next 6 games, and actually 7 games. I'm losing count. The next 7 games, and that was a part of the story. But that didn't mean it was easy. And that didn't mean we didn't have to overcome it, but we had to use it to develop us.
Kind of going back on the leadership aspect of everything, and maybe a little bit of your meeting yesterday. A lot of leadership is you should have, most winning teams have a team of leaders. They don't just have like one leader. I know last year the loss at Western Carolina, there was, I think it was JP kind of stepped up and said something that kind of motivated the rest of the team. I think I think part of a leader is being able to make it, I don't know if the right word is okay to speak up as a younger player when he sees something that like maybe he thinks can be corrected to an older player. How hard is that for a team leader to say, hey man, it's okay, to be humble enough to accept that?
Yeah, I think leadership is often discussed in sport. It's a little bit like the word culture, like probably the most overused and least understood word out there in our game. And I think a lot of times the definition of leadership can be misconstrued to what players then interpret what coaches are expecting with that leadership of, this is what I need you to do. Like, I need you to yell at guys. I need you to be screaming at guys. I need you to be, we gotta hold each other more accountable. That's a part of it, okay? But there's two rails of leadership that have to always be in equal flow with one another at all times to be the best that you can be, and that's guide, okay? The guidance and the accountability to standard has to be present at all times. But the other rail to make that train go has to be an inspiration and a belief that we're going to get there. And I think on Saturday, when you look at and you hear me say lack of leadership, well, like, does that mean he wanted guys yelling and talking and getting on each other? Hey, you know what? Like, Saturday, can we have a leader that steps up and inspires a group to a belief that if we just go play the values, we're going to be okay, right? Like, can you stare adversity in the face instead of looking at it and be like, oh, my goodness, is this about to happen? Can you get a group that can inspire one another? Well, to be able to do that, you have to have connection, right? You have to have relationship, okay? You've got to be able to say the things that are going to motivate that player to go play harder and to go do the necessary things to win. And sometimes we get to the edge of like, well, this means we need. Listen, our guys, like, we need that inspirational component and that belief that, hey, these are the values. This is how we have to do it. And now let's go encourage one another to do it and to ride through the hard together. And I think that's where this team has to continue to grow. You got to guide and you got to inspire. You got to guide, you got to inspire. You got to guide, you got to inspire. And if you get off on either of those two things and it's all inspire, well, then now all of a sudden when you have a setback, man, like, you don't know what to do, right? Or when you're only guiding, well, now it can just feel like so heavy, right? And it can feel so like there's not a lot of fun in this whole thing, right? And, if you've read Good to Great, Stockdale Paradox, I mean, it's one of the most basic leadership principles out there, but you have to have an ability to confront the brutal facts, guide, okay? But you have to have an unwavering faith that you can get there, inspire, right? And those two things can't work in silos. Those two things have to work at the same time with one another. And so my job as a leader, we're going to confront the brutal facts. Like, we're going to go right at them. Okay, like, way too many turnovers, way too many missed box outs, didn't have the mental toughness to go up there and hit free throws when we needed to, missed 14 free throws, right? Missed a bunch of threes and also didn't take some threes that we should have taken, right? Got to have the mental confidence to go up there and step into those balls and shoot them. We're not leading it the way that we need to. Confront the brutal facts. But, hey, y'all might want me to be unwavering right now. Like, my belief in this team has not changed. And I really don't care what anybody says. I see it every day. I know what we have. I know what we've been without. I know the things we've been through. I know the things that we've had to work through. And you know what? I'm going to trust that that's just going to help us to be more enduring and to be a harder, tougher team when it matters most. And we're going to keep the faith. And we're going to work our tails off. And we're going to come in here every single day and we're going to try to figure this thing out. And we're going to do those two things at the same time. And what I've got to do is continue to convince my team and our players to do the same thing. And that's where the power comes in. And, you go back to moments, this is when you need leadership, right? And it's not just that we need to be yelling and getting all negative. We've got to have a group that has an unwavering faith. And with that we're not pie in the sky ignoring the brutal facts of the things that we got to do to get better.
Well, Coach, I think everyone in the room said that they had asked all the questions they had, so I'll just ask you for a closing statement before we give the broadcast info and wrap up.
Yeah, we're really excited to start league play, and man, we got a great league. We got some great coaches in this league. We got great identity. We got great cultures. Our league's gotten off to a really good start. You know, we've got probably a handful of high major wins. We've got some really good non-conference wins, and we got some teams playing really well. And you know, I think this is going to be, for a fan, I think this is going to be a fun 2 months to really follow. I think, you know, you look at a lot of teams in this league, and really anybody can beat anybody on a given night. And I think it's going to come down, just like all games, right? The harder playing team that brings the most energy and plays the most connected usually is going to win. And I think it's going to be a fun 2 months. And so we're excited to get started. You know, league didn't do us any favors, I guess, threw us on the road twice. But I told the team this morning that was a huge part of our success last year. You know, we went and got some big wins on the road in league, and that allowed us, you know, to win the league. And so we've got to be able to get off to a great start on the road. And we know we got a big challenge in front of us. You know, Greensboro, especially with Brown Jones. When you look at, I think they only lost one game when he was healthy. And, you know, obviously he's been out the last couple games, which has impacted them. But they still have really good players if he plays or if he doesn't play. And they're going to be at home. They're going to be excited to play. I think it's going to be a heck of a ball game. And I've been really pleased with our guys' response. I've been really pleased with our attitude in practice, and looking forward to being able to lead our group tomorrow night.
All right, Coach, thank you. Just a reminder that tomorrow night's game and the Saturday game at Chattanooga are both 7 o'clock starts. From a radio standpoint, that's airtime at 6:30 via the Fan Upstate, both on ESPN Plus. And the Saturday game is also the Next Star game of the week between the Paladins and Chattanooga. Thank you for tuning in to Inside Furman Basketball with head coach Bob Ritchie. For all of us here at Furman, I'm Dan Scott saying God bless you. So long, everybody. This has been a Jeff Schetzel production.